So Virginia Representative Democrat Don Beyer has authored and introduced the Fair Representation Act, which would, it's a series of reforms to get rid of gerrymandering and the current top two system or top election system. Democratic reps Khanna of California and Jamie Raskin of Maryland have also co-sponsored the legislation. So currently, right now, we have a winner-take-all system, right? And which means in 2016 in Congress, 97% of all people in Congress were reelected. It's the easiest job to keep. So here's what happens. So it's also going to try to address gerrymandering. So if you're a Democrat living in a district drawn to include a huge number of Republican voters, your vote is purposely drowned out, and vice versa. The winner-take-all, first-past-the-point system means that if you want to vote for a third party, your vote will often be, quote, wasted as two parties compete to get the most votes, and other votes are considered inconsequential to that number. Meaning, here's a great example. So let's say a candidate gets 40% of the vote, and then the two third parties each get 30% of the vote. The 40% of the vote per candidate wins, even though 60% of the people in that district or state did not vote for that candidate. So, and that's the whole, you know, because we have to change it on the smaller levels first. It'd be great if we could change the presidential elections as well, get rid of the Electoral College and all of that, and stop having the electoral election board run by the two parties. It'd be great if we mandated that national televised debates had to have a minimum of 4 candidates from 4 different parties. That would be fantastic. So what this current system means is if you're in a Democratic district, you're going to run, the Republicans are going to put up a no name that they know is going to lose, and so you win that district. So basically, the election is decided in the primary. And then in the primaries, the parties in many states don't allow independents to vote. So independents have no say. So and the voter turnout in primaries is in like the 15 to 20%. So it's the same thing. If you're a Republican in a heavily Republican district, the Democrats will just put up some no name. They won't get behind him or her. The Republican wins. And then that's how you can then do to gerrymandering. So here's what this is want to change, what they're going to do. First of all, the bill would do 3 things: require all congressional districts to be drawn by independent redistricting commissions. Wouldn't we already assume that's the case? Nope. The two parties do this. The two parties have hijacked this country. And again, there's no mention in the Constitution of two parties dictating how election districts are drawn, how they're voted, all of that shit. They've taken over this. Well, corporations have, and they just have these two little divisions in their megacorp, the Republican division and the Democratic division. You would establish multi-member districts, have all districts use what's known as ranked choice voting, RCV. The independent redistricting would take power away from the partisan legislators to draw congressional district lines, meaning that one party or another could no longer engage in gerrymandering. They couldn't just say, oh, the Republicans, we're going to draw the lines this way, and a lot of times then they use it also racial. Oh, African Americans typically vote Democrat, so we're going to put them all in one little section of our state so that if they're spread out, right, then they could influence what we want to be a Republican district, right? And now the Democrats have done that in primaries with progressives, or a lot of independents have gone progressive. Multi-member districts would mean that voters in each district would have the opportunity to elect multiple legislators to represent them instead of just one. which would mean that more people in the district would have the opportunity to elect someone closer to their own ideology rather than being stuck with one lawmaker who may or not represent their viewpoint. Finally, perhaps the most significant reform in the bill is the RCV. As I said, that is the ranked choice voting. Under the system, voters would be able to rank their preferences among various candidates and parties rather than simply casting one vote for each office. If no candidate receives a majority of first preference votes, then second preferences are accounted for, and so on until one candidate has a majority. Which also eliminates costs, because runoff, I like the concept of a runoff election, but they're expensive. This, it's done in advance. So you would say, I want, whatever. I want this Green Party person is my first choice, this Libertarian is my second choice, and the Democrat is my third choice. Should be awesome. So if under the RCV, you can vote your conscience without helping a candidate you loathe win instead, right? Like in the past presidential election, if you lived in a swing state, voting third party maybe could have put Trump in office, right? That's a legitimate argument. It's nonsense. It's not nonsense in that, as I've talked about numerous times in the show, if Hillary was in office, we'd still be deporting people. We'd still be bombing Syria and Yemen and all that other stuff. We just there wouldn't be an attack on Planned Parenthood. RCV would make it so there's no longer anything as a wasted vote. If your candidate ends up not being one of the top two candidates in the election, you can deliver your other votes to one of those instead. It would also force major party candidates to respect third-party voters and their ideas. After all, they would want their second preference votes and their third, and so on and so forth. See? You could go in and have you could be a whatever. You could be a Republican or a Democrat and talk to a bunch of progressives and say, look, I know I'm not your first choice, but here's the reasons why if your first choice doesn't win, I might be able to help you out. And I think, man, you'd see more third-party candidates get in there. Which, wouldn't that be awesome? If we started getting third-party candidates or just independents in general in state senates and in the House and the Senate on the federal level, wouldn't that start to change things? We actually had some real different points of view versus just Coke and Pepsi, Diet Coke and Coke Zero. In an interview with The Intercept, Khanna stressed the benefits the bill would have in changing Congress to make it more representative of Americans. The reform of Congress is one of the biggest priorities to empower citizens, he said. This would help with minority representation and more women because many times communities in a small population are shut out and multi-candidate districts would allow them to have a proportional voice. Yeah. Because if you just district off whatever, like the Asian community, and that district isn't enough to swing the vote, or the whatever, district is, you could just say, well, that district, they don't have enough of an influence, so I don't even need to, I don't care what they want. I mean, this is what, as I did a video about how the Democratic Party is losing African-American votes because they've always just said, oh, we have the African-American, we got the black vote, we got it. So what are they going to do, vote for Republicans? So we don't have to address their issues. That's what they want. They want low voter turnout. They want you to just go, you have to vote for us. That's why the Democratic Party still at fucking 9 months after the election, 10 months, whatever we are, 9 months. We're still, people, the DNC and the corporate media still are blaming Bernie and Jill Stein and Gary Johnson and the Russians and everyone else because they've gotten away with that for decades. That's what happened after the 2000 presidential election. Everyone was mad at Ralph Nader. I was like, what? Why was it? It's Nader's fault? Jill Stein and Nina Turner, they prevented Hillary from campaigning in Wisconsin and Michigan. Like, come on. So the major obstacle in getting a Congress full of incumbents from the two parties to support legislation that would cut against their own self-interest. Right? So a lot of people in Congress are going to vote against it. So they need grassroots. They need people to push hard for this bill. And this goes back to primarying these people in 2018. Say you want this hard, and then pay attention in the 2018 and get them out of there. Push this hard. Don't back off of this. Just like don't back off of single-payer healthcare. Don't back off of it. It can be done, and this could evoke real change in this country. So this article that I'm reading from is from The Intercept below, which is another great source of independent media, as is this one. Like and subscribe. Watch the ads all the way through. Don't press skip. I'm trying to get rid of that fucking PragerU. I've written 3 times to Google. I don't want that ad played ahead of mine. They don't have a box. Usually you can click boxes like I had. There was a gun one, and I got rid of that. But they're making this one really hard. But I will try to get it off of there, even though it's bullshit. The PragerU one is complete bullshit. But thanks for supporting the show.